Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Empire.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of a live stream show on the John Conn Report. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, you can follow us. You can tune into the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube if you're watching this later as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. As you can see, I am joined once again by the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. You can listen to Bram on ESPN 630 in Washington, D.C. So, Bram, I am curious. How do you process Sunday's game now, a couple days later? And we'll get to the Bears game in a few minutes. But how are you processing this now that you've had a chance to think about what happened Sunday and what does it mean?
Obviously, tremendous amount of resiliency off of the game against Buffalo. So it was a great bounce back. It's a tough task to ask. Frankly, I think if Washington's a wild card, that Philadelphia is probably the last team they'd want to see, frankly. Yeah. So I think that's good news. Like, this team really knows how to play against them. They're a very good team, but and listen, I'm really disappointed they lost. I'm with that was a tough locker room. It really was. And
yes,
I've turned the page, but now that we're talking about it, that was a tough locker room and I was reassured when, Rivera said no moral victories. And there wasn't a person in that locker room that was happy that they came back and tied it and didn't win.
And that's been the case in the past.
I think, it was a tough one. It was a very tough loss. But I feel good about a lot of things that happened. And there are obviously a few things that did not go their way. And a couple players are going to have to be better and to win games like this. But I did like the resiliency. This is Sam Howell now. I thought that was his best performance of his young career. Thought he was great. Thought the offensive line was better. Thought the defense had a little left to be desired, but there were some good spots. And overall, I really wish they were 3-1 right now, because I think they'd go on a heater, if they won that game the other day.
I think what it also showed to me, Bram, was there's a lot of confidence in this team. And that's why I think it stung them so hard, because they truly felt like they went toe-to-toe with what is supposed to be the best team in the NFC East. And I'll say this, the Eagles miss a lot of guys they lost on defense. Yeah. I don't think that's the same defense they had last year. I think it could be a problem for them down the road, including when they play down here against these guys. Yeah. Because that team felt like they could and went toe to toe, and that's why it stung them. So that confidence, I think, is what has helped them recover from the Bills game. I think it's why they'll go out and have a good game Thursday. But that's one of the things that stood out to me. And that goes back to what you were saying about how the locker room was, because it was tough. It was tough. That was one of the tougher ones I've been in for a regular season loss.
It was for me too. I mean, honestly, when I get so emotionally invested in it, and to have that happen, and then it was just what a swing. And so it was tough. It was tough to take that as a loss. But I think it's, listen, I want to look on the bright side. It was a very good performance by them. There a lot of fortitude, two fourth quarter touchdown scoring drives, number of third down conversions, doing it in the last 2 minutes like that. We haven't seen this from a quarterback in a while. He's spreading it around. There's no favorites. He's not forcing it to anybody. There's just a lot of really good things to take from it, other than they're 2-2, and that's what their record is. So, let's see if they can turn around and get over it and take on a team that has a lot of problems, and hopefully take advantage of them on Thursday night. And I think that's putting it lightly,
Yeah. And they were in a pretty good spot in the locker room today when we were in there. And Ron Rivera said that he felt like he liked how they came in and responded on Monday. So I think that's when one of the things that we talked about this, last year or 2 years ago about the immaturity of the team. And I think this team is different than that. There's still some areas where the discipline needs to be better by a lot of players, not by just a couple. But, in terms of like rush lanes or this technique, that technique, whatever. But I think overall it's a mature team as far as their approach. And I think that's what can help them get over a game like that, go out and win a game, and maybe get on a little bit of a roll here because you got Atlanta and then the Giants up next.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have the schedule opens up for them. They are going to have to start, getting some wins here pretty soon because the back end of the schedule does look very tough. And, like San Francisco looks tough. Dallas twice looks tough. Miami looks tough. I mean, things are going to change, and we'll see where those teams are when they get there. But it's all reading like they're going to have a very tough hill to climb if they don't collect some wins here. And I think that's why this one getting away from them really hurts. Plus, they went toe to toe. Any number of plays could have gone their way, and they could have won. And I think their effort was outstanding. I thought they played really, really well. But listen, a loss is a loss, and I'm with the team here. That's no moral victories. Like, this is year 4 for Ron Rivera. This is year 4 for a lot of the guys on that team now. They don't want to hear it. They're sick of it. And to your point about the professionalism, I noticed this early in training camp, and which was actually something I really liked about them. There was a lot of people backslapping everybody, and they wanted to throw a parade, and everything is new, and kind of felt a little bit like, that the season's a success no matter what, because they got what they wanted, new ownership. And, and it was like, you couldn't do anything wrong, but they didn't act that way. They talked about it. They got asked about it all the time. And I think like a lot of them, John Allen, Terry McLaurin, guys who've been around, been leaders on the team, appreciate like kind of the renewed support that was obvious, like from the community and from the fans. But I didn't get anybody's sense like, oh, it's all gravy now. And so this started for me in the summer where I felt like they got the right attitude about this whole thing. Like, they want to win. They think they can win. And, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I think to that point, a lot of what they talked about, Bram, was like being excited to play in front of a lot of fans. That was the big thing, and how that could help them in some of these games. And it could be the difference between some games, and maybe that's the difference in a playoff game or be playoff team and not. So that was the big excitement. But yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like, I've always felt like they took this, like they need to win. And especially guys like John Allen, Terry McLaurin, who are used to winning, that they need to win. And Ron Rivera knows it too. He knows that, so, and that's why, but it goes back to like, I am curious, like on Sam Howell, like, I mean, I did the whole film breakdown, talked a lot about what he did well. He was quicker with the ball. I also I'll be honest, man, that Eagles defense needs some shoring up. And I think they're going to be in trouble. And I don't think that was a fluke what this team did to them on offense. Do you?
No,
I don't think at all.
But after I'd really, I think sometimes you just get perceptions of teams. And, I watched Philadelphia. I thought there were 2 things that weren't working for them. Part of the thing with the Eagles is their secondary's really beat up. Like Avonte Maddox went out. 2 of their safeties were out last week. Bradbury, I think, is not exactly what he was. Josh Job's getting picked on. And their linebackers are pretty quick, but not unlike the ones they had last year.
They're good against the run, not against the pass.
Yes. No, they're very fast to the line. They're bees on honey. So they're fast to the line. And then with that front, that's the strength of their defense now. The interior of their defensive line with these guys is the strength. That's why, I actually thought the offensive line played pretty well. I know the sack number's 5, but a few of them came on blitzes. And they do have a very good front. You're not going to win all the time. And I think Washington did about as much as they could really on the ground. It's very tough to run on them now with that front, but I agree. And I saw 2 things about Philadelphia that I think could be a problem for them. And one that either got fixed this weekend or probably will be fixed. Their pass defense and their passing game. Their passing game's been off really probably up until Sunday, but the first 3 games of the season, if you really watch them, Jalen Hurts was hesitant with the ball. He was taking some sacks. He was a little indecisive. They looked a little bit off. There was, clips of people arguing on the sideline with one another. And then after an argument, they'd like almost purposefully go to these people to try to like make them happy and remind them they're in the offense. Like, people forget, and they lost both their coordinators. Like, I haven't heard of many teams that just like change their coordinators and everything's fine and they go 14-3 again. What they can lean on though is their offensive line has 2 Hall of Famers and might be the best in the business. Their running game is impossible to stop. I actually think Washington did about as well as they could
very well
last weekend against them. And so they can lean on that. They also had been causing a lot of turnovers. So they were getting all these fumbles. They were getting all these turnovers. They run the ball really well. They build these leads. And I think it masked a lot of the issues that they're actually dealing with. Like if you go watch that Minnesota game that they played, they got 5 fumbles. Like they had a huge lead.
They had to hold on,
won
to
by
win.
6 because their pass defense can't cover anybody.
And that's why I think so does it change your perception maybe of how this team fits into the NFC East?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, before the season picked Dallas to win the division because I think Dallas has more playmakers on their defense, which has played out that way this year. And I think it's just hard to replicate 14-3 and new coordinators. But I do think that, and I said this at the beginning of the season, I think 3 teams out of the NFC East are going to the playoffs again. And I think we know which 3 those are. I don't know what order the division is going to be
Jones
in.
then, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what order the division is going to go in. I still think Dallas is probably going to win it because I think they flipped too many games with their defensive playmakers, but Philadelphia hadn't lost yet, so until they do, and they do have of teams that have certainties, their run game is a certainty. So it's very difficult to beat them when they get turnovers and start running the ball on you, especially if you don't have a good front, you will get run over by them. So they're difficult to deal with. But, I do feel like seeing this last week, one, makes the Buffalo game feel more like a one-off, which hopefully it is, that they just had one of those games that unraveled on them.
Look at Miami, what happened to them against the Bills.
I mean, here's a team that, they've trailed going into the fourth quarter, all 4 games. They won 2 of them and went to overtime and another one. 2 of them were on the road. So it ought to tell you, what this team is made up of. Can they keep doing it? Are they their own worst enemy at times? Are they still kind of learning on the job, both sides of the ball now? So, I feel like there's a more secure, if you're Philadelphia or Dallas, I think you get a more certainty of consistency of play, which is what I've not seen from Washington yet, and I didn't expect to see. But I think I felt this way from the get-go. If they can get through the first half of the season, the schedule lines up for them to be 500 or around it, or hopefully a little bit better. Let's see where the offense is when it turns the corner, right? Because I want to see where that is. And then defensively, frankly, I have a very hard time believing that this team's going to keep giving up this many points. They will shore it up, and people forget this about them. This has happened 3 years in a row. It's not just the offense that starts slow. The defense started slow last year too. It takes a few weeks for them to typically come around. Yeah. And I think they're going to be better than this, but there's a lot of work on that side of the ball. And frankly, off of Sunday, I got worried about Forbes. And I think for good reason, I got very worried about Forbes over the weekend.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that can earn 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a savings account. A high-yield, low-effort way to grow your money with no fees. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone to start earning and growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners, subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. No matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take your business to the next level. Shopify is the commerce platform that makes it easy to show up and sell exactly the way you want to. No need to code or design. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period today. Visit shopify.com/offer23 to get started.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask about is the defense. And you're right, they've started slow. However, we heard all offseason and all summer about how, we can't start slow. We can't start slow. And they're doing the same thing again. So how much do you think it is the defense? Because when you look at that game, one guy was involved in a lot of those big plays that they allowed. Those big plays cost them the game. So how much of it is a defense struggling versus a young corner or so, even because he hasn't been the only guy that's messed up. So I don't want to just put everything on all the struggles on him because against Buffalo in the fourth quarter and against Denver wasn't all on him. So
no,
it
wasn't. And I don't like I'm like you. I don't want to put a loss on one guy. I don't think it's fair.
But I think the one thing I'll say though is where this defense, when he gets better, this defense gets a lot better because then he becomes the guy that they needed. And, and it does take a minute to get there. And so, but I am curious from your end, are you concerned? We've seen him turn around, but they can't keep falling back on that. So what's your level of concern with them?
With Forbes specifically, There was one thing that actually there was the one thing that I want to see change for him. And that is because he's going to get beat, especially by top 5 receivers like AJ Brown. Like I get it. Like you're not going to win all that all the time. But go look at the 59-yard touchdown reception after Brown makes the play and starts, navigating through the middle of the field. Forbes isn't really running him down. And that was the part of it actually that really got me a little bit in watching it, because I don't want this kid's confidence to be completely shaken. And I think like when you heard about Kendall Fuller going up to talk to him and Benjamin St. Juste going up to talk to him and Ron Rivera multiple times going up to talk to him, it reads to me like this is an uber confident kid that has not had days like this very often, and we need him to keep his confidence up. But they foreshadowed this, John, like last week going into the game when it was like, hey, he only played 40% of the plays against Buffalo. What's up with that? And Rivera revealed, because he's very honest about all this stuff. We're talking to him about his technique. We're talking to him about his footwork. We're talking to him about a lot of things, and he's learning, and we want him to get better. Well, okay, learning and technique and getting into the NFL game, the NFL speed, understanding the route concepts, like I'm all for that. What I can't have happen with him is see him lose his confidence. And so hopefully that he takes a page from Sam Howell and just, it's over, flush it, get to the next game. This is a different team. That's a very good receiver, DJ Moore over there. And how many times you're going to see him on your side of the field? That's a very, very good high-end wide receiver you're about to see. I know the Bears' record is what it is, but Justin Fields just threw for 335. So they're not scared to throw the ball. So I want to see his confidence come back up. It was a rough game for him. Overall, it's not just his fault. Like I said this about the Buffalo game. I didn't love the defensive lines play in the Buffalo game. I thought they were a little bit better against Philadelphia, but I think they're at times they flipped a couple games. They flipped the first couple of games. Yeah, they did not against contenders. They didn't. So it's not just one guy. He was picked on. He had a really rough game. I'll be watching for his confidence. That's what I want to see. I want to see him bounce back, play better. Everybody has bad games. I saw a bad one from Hal the week before, and look what he did a week later. So hopefully Forbes gets his confidence back, and we don't have an ongoing issue with him, because if there is one, there will be a problem.
Yeah, and I don't worry about his confidence. Two things that encourage that you always look for is like, how does a guy respond to that? Even with the media, how are they with us? And after the game, he sat in his locker, he waited, he knew we were coming, and he answered all the questions. And I respect that for a young kid. Now, they are paid. This is part of their job. Like, it's in their contract. After games, you talk to the media, right? But there are other guys who would duck out. And so I respect that. And then he talked again today, that just as much, because he didn't have to do that, right? He could have just stayed in the shower. He could have gone to the trainer's room, whatever. He did it again. And I think that's all part of the maturation process. I think he'll learn like little things. And I know other players went up to him and talked to him about, like, for example, the double move for the touchdown. First of all, if the Eagles lose, the Eagles deserve to get ripped for that call. Like, you gave the ball back to these guys. You're in field goal range. You can pick up 5 yards. But the other thing that Forbes was told too, one of the players told me, is that he told him, like, listen, in that situation, let him, you don't need to be aggressive. Let him have the 5 yards. Right. And so, like, understand.
I mean, this is a no-win situation on that play. It was 2nd and 4. They get a first down, they bleed the clock and beat you. You get beat on a move, it's a touchdown. They gave him the ball back. I mean, either way.
The point is know the down and distance situation. There, you can give that up at the expense of, because what if it's a different game where you have the lead and you're trying to protect it? Understand the situation, but that's part of the growth process. And now in the end, like, they knew when the Eagles scored, they knew it gave them a chance. I think they felt like they were done. So, but that's just all part of it. But I like that he answered the questions after the game. He answered again today. I think he's a mature kid. I think that will help.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, listen, like the last 2 weeks they have played 2 teams that might be in the Super Bowl. So, like, I want to take that into account. I want to go back to this. There's no moral victories here, but they did play 2 very, very good high-level teams. Jalen Hurts is 21-1 in his last 22 regular season games. We know what the one is, and it really should have been 20-2. Right. So, like, frankly, like, I thought last week was good, but there are moments for sure. And, I do want to see a little bit more from the defensive line collectively, frankly. I mean, I don't just think this is Forbes. I think this is 2 weeks in a row where, okay, if we are going to just not just go toe to toe with teams like this, you need your best players to stand up and stand out. And that is our defensive line. So I thought Chase Young played pretty well. I thought Allen was more active than he was against Buffalo. I didn't call Payne's name a lot, the other day, although he is very disruptive and seems to be finding a lot of double teams. And, Montez hadn't had he had a couple sacks first couple of weeks. He hasn't had one the last 2 weeks against the good teams. So, we talked about him finishing. It is time for that front four to step up and start to carry the team again.
Well, I think what they need is some game-changing plays.
Yes.
And I think that's what we haven't seen. And Chase is coming close to those. Like, he's going to we all know that sometimes Chase is going to get out of his lane. And we all know that he's got to, like, there are some times where he's got to let John Allen, he's got to let him know, hey, I'm doing this. So that way, when he does that, Allen can react accordingly. Because when you're playing these mobile quarterbacks, if you're not in sync with them, that's how they get outside the pocket. And that's how Justin Fields last year against this team got outside the pocket because a rush lane was blown. So you can't have that. You can't have that situation. But the guy's making plays, and it's not just him. Like Daron Payne and those guys, like on the left side, there are a couple of times where you have two guys in one lane. I'm like, that's not, that's not right. So you've got to, against this guy, you got to be more disciplined. And, but I do think that Chase is close to making some game-changing plays. And I do believe, like, like guys like Emmanuel Forbes, those guys, like, they make plays in these kind of games. Like, you had this bad game, the Bears are going to throw the ball a little bit at him, and you have a chance to go make a play. And would it surprise you if the narrative after the game is like, oh, he had a pick six?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, that's what I hope to see. A lot of people are writing about all the points they're giving up. I am surprised by how many points they've given up here. I'm very surprised by this. And the explosive plays are surprising. Like, I came into the season very bullish about the defense, not just because they got, Chase Young back and they have that front four together, and Allen and Payne just look like a dominant duo at times coming into the season. So we know what we got there, but the back end is so fast. And I don't see that speed, in the games all as often as I thought I would. I thought I would see much more flashing burgundy bodies coming in and out of these routes, and I haven't seen as much of it yet. So it's taken a little time again to get everybody back on the same page. Cam Curl, I thought, played, by the way, very well the other day. He was outstanding the other day. We haven't seen a lot of impact plays from Derek Forrest yet, which is semi-surprising. That hasn't really happened. Kendall Fuller's had a very nice season so far. And the linebackers are at times, I saw a lot of people write about Cody Barton here. I thought that was Cody Barton's best game, actually, the other day. Like, I hear you on the earlier parts of the season that there was some work to be done with him, but like, I actually thought he played relatively well. And I think they held the Eagles to about 100 yards rushing, which is 85 below their average. And their per carry average was about almost 3 yards below what they'd had the first few weeks of the season. And that was a lot of Barton.
DeAndre Swift's longest
Davis, a lot of Barton. I don't think the defense on the whole played bad, but the explosive plays killed them. Absolutely killed them.
Here's a number for the explosive plays. So they've already allowed 11 pass plays for 25 yards or more. Last year in the final 8 games, they allowed 11 pass plays of 25 yards or more. So 8 games. Now we're in the fourth year. They started off like this too. It's always the big plays. And that's why Forbes gets, and that's not all the big plays are on him. Now we saw one against Denver, but there were some other ones where it's like somebody else is with a mistake, another young guy, whether it's a Derek Forrest or someone else. And, but obviously in this game, he was the culprit. But again, the big plays, the explosive plays are really, really hurting them right now, because that's the difference between them being a really good defense and not.
I mean, but think about the next 5: Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Philly, New England. Chicago, Atlanta, New York, New England. I'll tell you what, John, like, if the big plays are continuing against those teams, we actually have a real problem here. Like, at least this was against Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or even to some level, Russ and Jerry Jeudy and then Marvin Mims. Okay, like, things are going to happen. It can't against that Giants offense. It shouldn't happen against the Bears offense really, or should be limited. Atlanta showed no propensity to do anything like that to this point. New England has shown no propensity to do anything to this point. I know some of these games are a few weeks away, but that's when I'm going to get worried. If these explosive plays are happening against teams that don't really show the propensity to complete big plays like that, that's where we really have a problem.
Yeah, well, I guess so. You're not trusting Danny Dimes. He's going to turn into a Heisman contender again against these guys.
I get worried about him when he keeps the ball and runs around the edge. Everything else he does, I never get overly concerned about it.
But that's where Thursday night is the big concern with Fields.
Yes, of course.
And the one thing that the Bears started to do, and I don't know how much, if you've had a chance to watch the Broncos game. I actually was watching the Bears Sunday morning because I like to get ahead Sunday morning when we're on the road, get a chance to watch some. Like, my God, they're a mess. Like, how is this team scoring any points? And then they go out and hang up 28. Then I watched some of that game and I realized, like, God, the Broncos defense is horrible. But what they also started to do is incorporate Justin Fields' legs. And I'm going to guess they're going to do a little bit more of that on Thursday because they need to, because that's when he's dangerous. And, they also, they use a tight end a lot, Cole Kmet. And Mooney and Moore are legitimate threats. Now, how great a duo they are, they're legitimate threats. And Fields can get the ball to him if you get beat on a double move. So there are some things to worry about, but to me, it all starts with Fields' legs, and that's where I would have the big concern.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is we opened this by talking about what's the team's mood, how they looking, how they feeling, what are they talking about? Did they get over it? It's a short week, turn around. The Bears are 0-4 and just blew a 21-point lead at home to a not good team who had 70 scored on them. What are they thinking right now? I don't know. So, I mean, there's part of me that hopes they're checked out when they get here. I would never expect any NFL team to be that way, but considering the circumstances, what are they talking about this week?
Listen,
so who knows?
Listen, you have a defensive coordinator who resigned under weird, still unknown circumstances, right? And there's a lot of stuff that came out with them. And then you have a head coach who's getting destroyed there. And it's funny because Bram, being on this in the media, when all this stuff started happening with the Bears, we kind of looked in the media room. It's like, can you believe this isn't us that has to write this stuff?
It's so crazy. Your colleague, Courtney Cronin, who covers the Bears for ESPN, came on my radio show today. And I started with a year ago is when the ESPN report dropped. It was a bomb, right? It was the latest bomb. And Al Michaels went on the air that night and literally said the owners would like him to sell the team. It was the first prominent person that's kind of in the league that said it, nationally said it. And everything, happened since. And a year later, they're us. The shoe is on the other foot. And I was talking to Courtney about it. I'm like, your defensive coordinator, Fields, the Claypool situation, the coaches getting killed. They don't know where their stadium's going to be. Everyone's screaming and yelling about everything. Some of the moves they've made make no sense. They have become us in a year. It's crazy, really.
Well, it is. But it also tells you, listen, this goes into a bigger discussion on Josh Harris and how he settled this franchise and just the difference it's made. And we haven't, by this point last year, we probably would have already asked Terry McLaurin or someone else, hey, about this story. What do you think? How does it affect you guys? The biggest thing we're asking Terry McLaurin is about hey, what kind of coverage was it? Why was Sam Howell better this week? Why, with Rivera, the biggest decisions, are you going to change the long snapper? Now the other part could have been, do you go for two? I think that's still a slight topic, but the point is, it's all football stuff. It's all football stuff.
I wanted them to. I don't know where you were on it. I wanted them to do it. I know it's easy to say in hindsight now, but I wanted them to do it on the road. On the road, scored. They got all the momentum. Go for it. That was my feeling on it in the booth at the time. I felt that way, but listen, I don't blame them for sending it to overtime. And hindsight, who knows? It might have failed. And then you go 31-30 and you get killed if it fails. But me at the time, I would have gone for it.
I was okay with them not going for it. I honestly, I don't want to sound like a fence splitter, but if they had gone for it, that's fine. But I didn't mind, even in talking to some players, they're pretty mixed on it. I haven't talked to anybody who was firmly we should have gone for it. We were telling them to, blah, blah. I didn't talk to anybody like that. They were yeah, we felt like this, but the other thing somebody else pointed out to me, Bram, was because of the new, with the overtime rules, that more games are ending in ties, and not that they played for a tie, but that I think they'd rather go into overtime and try and win in overtime. And if you tie, you tie. And that tie, like last year, the tie would have helped them if they win one more game. They're in the playoffs. They have 9 wins. Detroit has 9 wins. They got the tie. They're in the playoffs. So, so I think that was one thought, but I didn't sense a big, I'm pissed that we didn't go for it, anything like that. So, and again, you had the ball in overtime. So, if they'd gone for it, then that's fine. But he did go for it on the 4th down early in the game on the first drive where I felt like you needed to. But I did not have a huge problem with them not going.
Expressing your love can look many different ways. And with the right jewelry gift from Blue Nile, it can truly sparkle. Blue Nile's collection of classic diamond jewelry makes for the kind of gift that speaks volumes without saying a single word. Or switch things up with a sapphire piece sure to spark conversation. Either way, Blue Nile's Diamond Guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Express yourself with Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This Halloween, mystery lurks around every corner. Bundle up with Disney Plus and Hulu.
What are you scared of?
The dark.
It's spine-tingling fun on Disney Plus with Haunted Mansion and Goosebumps.
I'm gonna need you to spread the word.
Then feel the bone-chilling terror on Hulu with The Boogeyman and American Horror Story Delicate.
Something's happening to me.
The Disney Bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus. All of these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $9.99 a month. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
Let me get you this question. Nathaniel asks, 2-2. It's where I thought we would be. Do you think where we need to be at week 4?
I think you're where you need to be. We're seeing what Sam Howell can do. You've seen a lot of good flashes from him, some good games. I think you can be very encouraged by him. They're not where they need to be on defense. That's my concern. But I like where the team I think is going at this point. I think what Howell has shown has been pretty good for 3 of the 4 games. So that's what I think.
I think the big bet of the season was Howell. I think he's passed so far. He did have a bad game, but he had one bad game. Defensively, I think this team needs to be better, still needs to be led by them. And I'm hoping they will improve because they've done so in the past. We all have short memories. They struggled early in the season against Detroit. They struggled early in the season against Philadelphia last year. Like, hopefully, benefit of the doubt and just recent history, they'll get better. Frankly, I thought the interior offensive line probably had its best game this past week, and that was a big test.
Yeah,
that
was a good front there.
I thought it was a better test for what they had.
Yep.
So, can this offensive line, I think I said this from the get-go, can this offensive line be adequate? And there was times here earlier in the season that I don't think they were adequate enough to be good enough. The other thing that's developed here that I really, really, really like is Brian Robinson's turning into a better back than I thought he was going to be. And I thought he was going to be good, but I wasn't sure he was going to be potentially dominant. And there are signs with him that it's developing really fast. And I love what I see. And my producer always laughs about it. He names like players on the team he calls power rankings, people rising up the power rankings. And he's like, B-Rob is shooting way up. And he's becoming very quickly one of my favorite players on the team to watch, to call his games. He runs with such violence. Every play seems to matter to him. He is a finisher for them. And now all of a sudden he's got a second cut in his game. His vision has changed. He's able to make himself small at times. I thought he was like a really good singles doubles hitter. I'm starting to feel like there's more there. And that's a really good sign to me too. So I knew this was going to go slowly. I wanted to be apprehensive because of Hal. I didn't know what we were going to get. I liked what I saw, but I didn't know what we were going to get. And now I'm starting to feel pretty good. So 2-2, having played Buffalo and Philadelphia, and one of them in Philadelphia, sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Now we hit the part of the schedule where they better win more than they lose, or we can have a different conversation in a few weeks.
Listen, again, you're right. No moral victories, but if you're able to build on that game, can you build confidence off because how you thought you should have won that game? Well, then we see it in the next few games. But to the other part, the one big concern is the kid, Sam Howell's been sacked 24 times. For whatever reason, wherever the blame is, the number is what it is. And that's really hard for quarterbacks to sustain. And shout out to all the Howellians who were in on him last year. So hat tip to you fellas, you folks.
Yeah, I thought he's been pretty good.
Yeah, listen, the kid, there's a lot to like about him. A lot.
There is a lot to like here. I mean, I think they're in a tough spot in a very tough division, but I think that I get the sense that this is a very professional team, one that's a little different that's been in the past. I think this is a team that feels like it can win. The competitive juices are flowing. They play hard for this coaching staff. And I'm hoping it's going to get better. And this was only been 4 games of Hal at quarterback, 4 games with EB as the coordinator. Even Hal said today, I thought it was a very interesting thing. He just kind of blurted out, like, we're getting used to EB calling the games. And there have been times where, all of a sudden, like, they've gotten very pass heavy. Like, so I think that there's some feel that's being worked out by the new coordinator too. So this is all a little bit of a work in progress. We know what their weaknesses are. I think we're seeing that their strengths might be greater than some of the, than some of the assets that we thought that they were. And so I feel really good about this. But I do think they have to win Thursday night. Like, I hate saying that publicly, but I really do think they have to win against an 0-4 team at home on a quick turnaround. I don't care what days ago. That's a must.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt. And at worst, you have to split the next 2 at worst. And I think they're there for you, but it starts with Thursday. If you go out there and you lay an egg, then any positive, encouraging signs from Sunday are wiped out.
I agree.
And again, I'm tired of the measuring stick talk and all that, but like, where you measure yourself is not just against the good teams, it's Thursday night. Because if you go out there and you handle your business, then you go out there and you have a solid win. And that's what they need to do. And that's when you can start to build off of something. It's like, okay, there's something going on here. I think they do feel like they can be better with them than what they have been. I mean, I think they genuinely feel confident in who they could be.
Yeah, I think so too. But they got to show it now. And the next few weeks, they have opportunities against teams in a couple of cases that are struggling. So the Bears, the Giants, by the time they get to the Giants could be 1-5, because they got Miami and Buffalo next. So that by the time they get to them, that could be their record. So they got to take advantage of some opportunities here, really. And this is the time. Now, this is the part of the schedule where they had to start winning. They typically do around this time of the schedule anyway, but this is it now, because once we get to Thanksgiving and it's Dallas, Miami, Dallas again, San Francisco, we'll see what the Jets are, see what the Rams look more competitive than I think we thought they were going to be. We don't know what they're going to be. Like, the schedule looks very hard at the end of the season. Right now, it's set up to be very difficult. We can't be begging for wins at that point. They gotta get some now, where the schedule is opened up for them with teams that are either struggling to get out of the gate, or a team like Atlanta that'll be a very good, measuring stick for them. They're in the same boat. Like, could they win their division? Sure. Could they end up as a wild card? Sure. So I think these next couple of weeks, this one's a must Thursday night, and then next week, maybe we get Heineke. We find out where we are.
That's what I've been waiting to say. That he's going to play in that game.
Dying for it too. I'm dying for it too. Just as the fan of a good story, man, we've got to see him play us. It's got to happen. So
yeah, no, I think there's some encouraging signs that have been going on here, but the defense for them to take that step. It's funny because I would have said, the offense has to play better, but now it's the other way around, that the offense is showing signs in 3 of these games, and the defense has to become more consistent. But we'll see. I do think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't know about interesting game. It shouldn't be an interesting game Thursday night. Take care of business, get to 3-2, build some positive vibes for 2 road games coming up, and then build some momentum. So, Bram, thanks a lot for coming on. Thanks everybody for joining us and throwing out your comments out there and just being part of the episode. Really appreciate it. I'll be back on, I don't know if it's Wednesday night, Thursday morning, with my keys and prediction for the Bears game. And then Friday morning, Bram and I will talk about the Bears game, get that out for you that afternoon. And so I'll talk to you next time.